How's it going, perverts? And in today's video I'm going to give you 5 tips on how you can keep making progress in your training when you're in a calorie deficit. Obviously we're getting into the middle of summer now, and I'm sure a lot of you are still in the middle of doing your summer cuts. Things are maybe getting a little bit harder, or you've still got a bit to go. Some of you will maybe even be thinking about extending it on to get a little bit leaner, or maybe just kind of maintain where you are through the entire summer. Now, regardless of where you sit on that spectrum, I guarantee at some point you're going to be getting a little bit pissed off and finding it a little bit harder to keep making progress in your training. And that's probably putting you off wanting to keep dieting for as long, and you would rather just stop the diet and start to push on in the gym a little bit, because who likes feeling weak and pathetic when you're in the gym? Whether you're there yet or not, I'm just going to give you some pointers so that you can keep getting bigger and stronger whilst you're in your calorie deficit. Because contrary to popular belief, you can still build muscle and get stronger when in a calorie deficit. Obviously it does become harder as the cut progresses on and when you get to like ridiculously lean levels of body fat, but it can still be done, and it's going to be done a lot easier if you follow the tips I'm about to give you. And you're maybe not quite at the stage you need this video yet, but do make sure that you save it for future reference, give a little like, and obviously make sure you subscribe at the same time. And apparently as well, you can push the bell button so that you get notifications when I post videos. Why would you not do that? Because you're fucking waiting on these videos every single Sunday, so make sure that you hit the bell button so that you never forget. We've got 3 training based ones, 2 nutrition based ones, and first of all, what you want to try and do is find your minimum effective volume in the gym. Your minimum effective volume is the least amount of training you can do that's going to give you progress. When you've not got quite as much calories to rely on, you don't want to waste energy doing like loads of training and not getting much out of it. What I suggest you do is, rather than try and get the most amount of training that you can benefit from, you try and find the least amount, so you're spending less time and less energy in the gym for the same results. Let's just say you're doing 20 sets a week for a muscle. Let's just say you cut that back to 15 sets, but you're still seeing the numbers go up every week. Then that's obviously enough to make you progress. So be efficient, don't do any more than you need to do. And the second thing is, quite obviously, as I always say in pretty much any subject I ever talk about when it comes to training, make sure you're training hard. Don't just think that, oh, I've not got much calories to rely on and I'm in a deficit and I'm not going to build any muscle and I'm just a wee sad, pathetic little loser. Go into the gym with a strong mindset and don't talk yourself into being weak. Go in, push yourself as hard as you can, because if you're going to have any chance of getting stronger and building muscle while in a calorie deficit, you're going to have to push yourself really fucking hard to force it to happen. So make sure that you're not being a little bitch. Go in the gym, train hard. When you get to ridiculously low levels of body fat and you've been cutting for like 26 weeks, i.e. you're planning on going on a bodybuilding stage, but you're not gimpy bodybuilders if you're watching me, so make sure that you are pushing yourself hard, take yourself close to failure, and have that same mindset of every session I'm going in to beat what I've done the previous week. And on the subject of training hard, obviously that should be your default setting, to go in and push yourself. However, fact of the matter is, some days when you are restricting yourself on calories, you may not have the best session in the world, and obviously as time goes on, then it's going to be harder and harder to have as good sessions consistently. Don't try and fart against thunder, adapt your training when needed. If you're just like barely struggling to lift your warm-up sets, like just keep going up to like your heaviest sets, end up not getting anywhere near the reps you're supposed to, or not being able to lift the weights and miss out on a ton of work. Just be adaptable, and if you're not feeling it that day and you get in the gym and everything's feeling heavy, then you just cut back. You have a slightly easier session, and that's going to keep you ticking over till the next again session where you can hopefully push on again. And likewise as well, you will still have some days like when you're just training normally where everything does feel light and everything feels brilliant and you can push on. So make sure you take advantage of that, because there's obviously no guarantees how and when they're going to come around. You should obviously have a plan going at the gym in terms of what you're meant to be lifting, but sometimes whether you're pushing on or cutting back, you do need to deviate from the plan. Now, in terms of the nutrition advice that I'll give you when it comes to getting stronger and building muscle within a calorie deficit, there's obviously not too much technical stuff to tell you. Out with obviously the basics and making sure that you are overloading on protein, you are getting a sufficient amount of carbs in, and fat should probably be at the sort of lowest point they ever are when you are in a calorie deficit. I suppose that's pretty much like a point, isn't it? Well, fuck it, we'll just call that a point. Make sure you are hitting your protein goal as priority, which should be about 2 kilos. I can get this wrong every time I say it. 2 grams for every kilogram of body weight every day. It may be worth overloading depending on sort of where you are at your diet and what sort of calories you're on. It may be worth lowering that down slightly to open up options to other food groups. Different video. So protein on site, and make sure you don't fuck about with that. After that, the bulky of the rest of your calories should come from carbs, and then just a wee bit fat in there just to regulate your hormones and all that boring stuff. Now the point I was going to really get onto here is, when you do have a kind of lower amount of calories that you're working with and you just don't have much to eat throughout the day, what you need to make sure that you do is to get the most out of your training is try and time your meals and more specifically your carbs around your training window. So your body's going to be using and needing the carbs the most to fuel your training and recover from training. So what you want to make sure that you do is try and have the bulk of your carbs around your training so that you're actually just getting the most out of them and you've got the energy there when you actually need it. If you train at night, it's pretty pointless having a big massive carby breakfast first thing in the morning, maybe some sort of carbs for your lunch, and then by the time you actually get closer to your training, you've not really got too much left to eat. What you'd be better doing is just having a smaller breakfast, a slightly bigger lunch, and then a slightly bigger dinner as well, so that the carbs you're having from there is going right in to fuel the workout when your body actually needs it, and then obviously after it's going to help start the recovery process better. Again, when you are limited on calories and carbs and such, make sure that you're just trying to get the most absolute out of it, and you should really be trying to eat round the clock, and that's what I've always done in my cuts, and I get quite anal about that. If I know I've got a training session in the morning, I'm having a big carby breakfast and a big carby lunch, and then the rest of the day, when I've already spent the bulk of the energy I'm going to spend that day, that's when I cut back, because I know my body doesn't really need it at that point. Obviously when you're just training normally, it doesn't matter quite as much because your glycogen stores and your carbs are going to be topped up just kind of generally throughout the day, and you're not ever running too low on them. But when you're in a cut, that's when we do want to just try and tighten these wee things up a little bit. Then lastly, nutrition linked with mentality. Just try and not dwell on the lack of food that you're actually eating. First hand mistake from me here that when I have been on cuts before, sometimes I'll get to a point and all I'm focused on is, oh, it's so difficult, I'm barely eating anything and I'm not going to have any energy for the gym and I'm hungry and it's difficult and it's this and it's that, and a lot of times you don't even actually feel it. You just kind of like assume that, oh, because I'm dieting, I'm actually like hungry and I've not got any food in me, and you just like play these mind games with yourself and talk yourself into actually just like being weak and making the cut feel harder than it is, never mind when you actually go into the gym. Again, the less you think about how much you're actually not eating, the less it's going to affect you. Fuck knows if that made any sense, but please believe me, it's actually true. The more you're thinking about how low your food is and the odds of you having a good session, and you'll end up talking yourself out of actually having a lot of good sessions that you otherwise could have had. If you go into the gym with that strong mindset that I spoke about before, please believe you can still go in and get stronger and build muscle while being in a calorie deficit. Ended up being 6 tips for you there, so hopefully you find them useful. Don't forget to like the video. You can even leave a comment on it to help the algorithm and all that. YouTube algorithm is actually going all right at the moment, but the Instagram algorithm is absolutely shite, so please make sure you go and follow me on there. You can even just go and spam like all my stuff, comment on it all, fucking share it. Link for that's in the description, as well as the link to other cool shit like my email list where you will receive a YouTube video in word form every single week. Obviously it's not going to take you as long to read, probably about a minute rather than 7 minutes to watch, but you get the idea, and it's actually less training-y than my YouTube videos, so you'll get a laugh out of it if nothing else. Coaching inquiry form is there below, whether you're cutting, bulking, getting stronger, training for a sport, just try to shag more birds, whatever the reason, I've got you covered. You can fill that out, or you can just send me a wee message directly on Instagram. That's all for me. I'm going to go and squat, and I will see you in the next one.